Hello and welcome back to Archetype Builds. Today we are not looking at an archetype for your character. We are instead continuing our class ranking series where we rank every subclass in the game according to how well they fit the 7 roles of the party. That being the Negotiator, the Infiltrator, the Investigator, the Support, the Utility, the Frontliner, and the Beatdown. Today we are talking about Warlock pacts. So it's been a long time since I started this series. We are coming up on a year. I think I did my Artificer rankings while I was in Europe. That would have been in April. So this is going to come out in like a week. So yeah, I think we should wrap up just under a year of doing the 12 classes, which is pretty incredible. So I just want to kind of like review my philosophy when it comes to these rankings, because statistically speaking, if you're watching this, you probably weren't there to watch the first one. So the idea here is when you're choosing a subclass, most ranking guides out there will either rank the classes, the dungeon dudes have these kind of 7 roles in the party, so you'll get the classes ranked according to how they fill each role, but of course the subclasses change, alter, add on to the class features. So when you're choosing your class, you're often choosing like subclass as a part of that decision. And so the question is like, well, great, paladin can be a good like frontliner, but like which paladin subclass is the best frontliner? Or like, the wizard is a pretty terrible frontliner except for the blade singer, which has all these abilities around being on the front lines. So it's like not helpful to just look at the class. And then when you look at like subclass, there are subclass guides out there, but they're all like just the S to D rankings, right? They're just like, this is a great subclass, or this is a little one, and you're like, well, I want to be the party healer, or I want to be, a utility character in like battlefield control and stuff like that. Like this is what do I do with this number, right? What does this mean to me? So there's no one on the internet who has done all the subclasses by the 7 roles of the party. So that's what we are doing here, is the analysis that is most helpful to you, the people. Warlocks are going to start with the Archfey subclass. This is if you make a pact with an Archfey. You're getting a spell list that includes Fairy Fire, which is an incredible spell. You're getting Phantasmal Force, and then the rest of these spells are not super great. Dominate, Beast, and Greater Invisibility are very good at spell level of 4th, but I think it kind of tapers off. Your first level ability here is Fey Presence, which says your patron bestows upon you the ability to project a beguiling and fearsome presence. As an action, 10-foot cube, wisdom saving throw, and then you can either choose Charmed or Frightened. So you can be a scary Fey or a very charming Fey, but you have this 10-foot cube effect. This is, I've always seen it as kind of like an emergency button. Again, it's a 10-foot cube, it's a very short radius around you. So do you do this with one person next to you? Probably not. You do this when you are getting ganged up on and you need a way to get out of there. So it's not necessarily helping you do your thing, because your thing is probably not being in the middle of a bunch of enemies, but when you are, maybe you'll survive because of this ability. At 6th level, you're getting Misty Escape. When you take damage, you can use your reaction to turn invisible and then teleport 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. You remain invisible until the start of your next turn. So again, a great emergency button if enemies attack you. Not particularly good at doing anything else, just kind of you are slippery and getting away from bad guys. For what it's worth, as far as emergency buttons go, I'd take Misty Escape over Fey Presence any day. Crazy. Could you make a melee Warlock that uses this to like mitigate the amount of damage you're taking? I guess, but then you're not a great frontliner because you're dipping away from battle. And your abilities really don't speak to that. So yeah, not helpful. And then at 10th level you get Beguiling Darkness, which is this like Uno reverse. You're immune to being charmed, and when another creature attempts to charm you, you can use your reaction to charm them instead, which is very fun. So they make a wisdom saving throw against your Warlock spell save DC. One of the better Warlock subclasses if you want to charm people, but of course, in my opinion, charm is one of those difficult conditions to act under, because on one hand you like the person and won't attack them, on the other hand you're not necessarily getting control over that character or anything. That's a tough one, and already that's 10th level, like, so that's everything. That's the whole subclass. Dark Delirium at 14th level, you plunge a creature into illusory realm. Action, creature within 60 feet of you. Wisdom saving throw. Man, if you have a poor wisdom target, this is your guy. On a failed save, it is charmed or frightened. Wow, it's charmed again. Amazing. For 1 minute until concentration is broken. The effect ends early if it takes any damage. The creature can only see and hear you, itself, and the illusion. So this is good, like crowd control, I suppose. There is some utility here, right? Putting a creature on ice if they fail their spell save DC. But still, it's yeah, I mean, lots of creatures are going to do okay on wisdom saves. You get like legendary saves, and this is once per short rest. You can kind of put someone on ice, so it's okay utility. The Celestial Pact Warlock. So, unlike the Divine Soul Sorcerer, you don't get any like cleric spells or anything, although your spell list does include Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, Lesser Restoration, Revivify, Guardian of Faith, so there are some good cleric spells on that list. You get additional cantrips. You get the Sacred Flame and Light cantrips, which are okay, perfectly reasonable and fine. They don't count against the number of Warlock cantrips that you know, which is great because, of course, the spells are just options that you could take. So they will count against your spells known if you choose to take them. You're also getting a Healing Light, which is this like pool, almost like the Paladin's Lay on Hands, just this like pool of healing, but instead of being like fully fungible, it is D6s. So it's a number of D6s equal to your 1 plus your Warlock level. So at the level that you take this subclass, that's just 2, and then go up to 3, 4, 5 relatively quickly. But you do have to spend the whole D6 to like get through that. So you can't just like dole out 1 hit point to bring someone back up. You got to roll the D6. Still, it's a good source of healing and actually genuinely helpful for support. Like if you were going to use a healing word, this is probably better, right? You've got a D6 is better than a D4 plus your spellcasting modifier. Because a lot of times you just are trying to like bounce someone back up. So this is useful. You get a lot of uses of this. And then it's a bonus action to use it, right? So it's got that same effect as a healing word. Like you can kind of use your action to do your thing, and then bonus action pop people back up. Good healing. So already the support of this class is actually decent. Radiant Soul at 6th level. Your link to the Celestial is going to give you a conduit for radiant energy. So you've got resistance to radiant damage, and when you cast a spell that deals radiant or fire damage, you can add your charisma modifier to that, which is really good. Agonizing Blast adds your charisma modifier to your cantrip, which is really, really good in that case because you see multiple beams with the Eldritch Blast. This could deal lots of additional damage if you're casting a lot of radiant or fire spells. Now, of course, radiant is kind of hard to come by, so you're probably talking about fire spells for this, but there are plenty of fire spells out there. You can add your charisma modifier too. This will increase your damage by a decent amount. Celestial Resistance. At 10th level, you're going to get a number of temporary hit points equal to your Warlock level plus your charisma modifier. So your 10th level here, you probably have a good charisma modifier. Maybe you've even maxed it out. So you're talking about 15 temporary hit points. That's not bad. Additionally, choose up to 5 creatures you see at the end of the rest. They each gain temporary hit points equal to half of your Warlock level plus your charisma modifier. So that's, at this level going to be like around 10 for them because it's 5 plus 5. So you get 15 and they all get 10. That's good. That's better than a Hero's Feast most of the time, right? Or sorry, it's better than like Aid or something, right? You'd have to upcast Aid a lot to get similar results. So definitely toughens up your whole party. It's great support. You yourself now have resistance to radiant damage and 15 temporary hit points at the start of each rest. That's decent. That's solid. That's not bad. At 14th level, you get Searing Vengeance, which is a very cool ability, but I think probably doesn't count anything towards any of your rankings. So essentially, if you are reduced to 0 hit points, you have to make a death saving throw at the start of your turn, you can instead spring back up to your feet with a burst of radiant energy. So you regain hit points equal to half your hit point maximum, which is huge. I mean, by 14th level, you're probably talking about like 40 hit points. And then each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you takes radiant damage equal to 2d8 plus your charisma modifier and is blinded, which is probably the more significant part. At 14th level, I doubt you're facing anything that's going to go down to like 9 damage of radiant damage, or 15 damage of radiant damage. But blinded is a really useful condition to apply to people. So you can only do this once per long rest, but super, super nifty. You're the healer of the group, maybe, with all your D6s. So you going down is bad news. That's a huge burst of health, right? Half your hit points back, and then potentially blinding enemies, turning the tide against the enemy. It's good. It's a great ability. And it means you don't really mind taking some of that damage, right? So you've got resistance to radiant damage, you've got 15 temporary hit points, and honestly, you're not too miffed if you go down in combat, because you can use this, you can blow up, regain half your hit points, at which point you probably want to get out of dodge and not take any more damage. But you're actually kind of okay as a frontliner. Crazy as it is to say, you're probably not as worried as other support or caster classes about getting hit by the enemy. Fathomless Warlock, the water-themed one. Spells, you're going to get Create or Destroy Water, of course. Thunder Wave, Gust of Wind, Silence, Lightning Bolt, which is great. Sleet Storm, which is great. Control Water, Summon Elemental, Water Only, which is very funny. Bigby's Hand appears as a tentacle, also very funny. I love when they like embed the flavor into the mechanical descriptions. It's very like, this is the kind of thing I would make, like for my archetype builds video, is like, what if you wanted to be like a Kraken priest or whatever, like take Fathomless Warlock and then use Bigby's Hand but make it a tentacle. And then it just puts it in there, like it's just in the text of of the class. I love it. So at first level, you're getting a little companion, which is the Tentacle of the Deeps. You can magically summon a spectral tentacle that strikes at your foes. Side note, I wish it wasn't spectral. I wish you could like summon it from a puddle or something. Like you just always have water nearby. But it strikes at your foes. As a bonus action, you create it and then lasts for a minute. When you create it, you can have it attack someone nearby, within 10 feet of it. And then each successive turn, you can use a bonus action. You can move it and attack. It basically becomes like a spiritual weapon for you as a warlock. So it's a D8 of cold damage and reduces the speed of the enemy that it's hit. And then at 10th level, it increases to 2d8 cold damage. So that does scale a little bit, I suppose. But really, that damage is not that significant, even for a bonus action. And I'd be interested to know if that 10 feet of speed reduction does play a role. Overall, I think this is a pretty weak feature, although it's a very fun thing to do. And then, of course, you get Gift of the Sea. You gain a swimming speed equal to 40 feet, which is very good. And then you can breathe underwater, which is just nifty. You can just do that always, which great for first level character. So at 6th level, you're going to get 2 features. The first one is Oceanic Soul. You're going to get resistance to cold damage, which is great. And then when you and another creature are fully submerged in water, they can understand you perfectly, and you can understand them perfectly, which is interesting. I might have even done that for like that first level feature. I guess it's fine. It's just okay utility. It doesn't really matter. But you don't have to take message to be underwater with people, right? The other 6th level ability you're getting is Guardian Coil. Your Tentacle of the Deep can defend you and others. When you or a creature you can see takes damage within 10 feet of the tentacle, you can use your reaction to choose one of those creatures and reduce the damage to that creature by 1d8. So essentially, it seems like the tentacle is like reducing the amount that you get hit, like wrapped around their wrist and like fights back against it as they stab. And so the damage is reduced. And that damage reduction does increase to 2d8 at 10th level. Again, this is pretty small. I think generally speaking, in the grand scheme of things, in a party of 4, you guys are like by this level dealing out, at least 40 or 50 damage a turn. So adding on a d8, which is like 4 damage, is not much. Reducing a d8, which is like 4 or 5 damage, is really not much. And you are expending your reaction to do that, so you're not getting any other reaction spells or opportunity attacks. yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like this is a little weak. Like maybe it was 2d8 all the time and then bumped up to 3d8 at 10th level or something. I don't know. Something's got to happen, I think, for this to be a decent subclass. But there is an attempt here. And then at 10th level, you're going to get Grasping Tentacles. So you learn the Evard's Black Tentacles, counts as a Warlock spell for you. You can cast it once without a spell slot, which is great. I've used Evard's Black Tentacles on characters before. It's really good utility, really good crowd control to like restrain people. Whenever you cast the spell, your Patron's Magic bolsters you, granting you a number of temporary hit points equal to your Warlock level. Moreover, damage can't break concentration. So this is excellent for the utility. This is very good crowd control. You get an extra casting of it. When you do so, you're getting extra hit points, right? You're bolstering yourself. And you don't need to worry about concentration when this is the spell that you're concentrating on. Doesn't allow you to do multiple concentrations, but this concentration is just better. So you are now like a tentacle machine, just like grabbing groups of enemies with these tentacles. I think it's a good spell. Getting an extra casting of it is really good. Yeah, it's decent. It's decent utility. Like it really is. And then, of course, at this level is when your tentacles things are doubling. So 10th level is probably the peak for this subclass. This is as good as you're going to get. From here on out, the scaling doesn't increase, right? It doesn't help you anymore. You're going to kind of taper off in power past 10th level. But 10th level is usually, it's endgame for a lot of medium campaigns. As we all know, there are very few high-level campaigns in D&D, so it's a good enough level to be capping out on, I guess. 14th level, you're getting Fathomless Plunge. You can magically open a temporary conduit to watery destinations. As an action, you teleport yourself and up to 5 other willing creatures within 30 feet of you. Amid a whirl of tentacles, you vanish and reappear up to a mile away in a body of water you've seen or within 30 feet of it, each appearing in an occupied space within 30 feet of the others. Okay, so first of all, I would homebrew that it cannot be next to that pond. You are appearing in the water, my friends. That is what's going on. Everyone is coming out soaking wet. That's a guarantee from me, fam. The other thing is, I don't love that you had to have seen the body of water already. I kind of feel like that defeats the purpose. It's not too much to ask your DM, hey, in this city that we're going to that's a mile away, do they have any like fountains or lakes or something? I'm just going to portal in to there. And then let your DM make a situation out of it, right? You can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So you pop up out of this fountain, all the guards are like, what the heck? Get him! And then you're in a combat situation, you've got to do stuff. I think it'd be fun to like have this ability get you into trouble, but no, it's one you've seen before, so you're backtracking to a previous place you've been. You can show up next to the pond instead of in it. Cowards, Wizards of the Coast. But I like the subclass. I mean, that utility is pretty. It's like a teleport spell, So you get an extra teleport spell every short rest. That's nifty. Radius of 1 mile, which is fine. It's actually probably not fine. I'm guessing there are a lot of campaigns where you generally are needing to travel more than a mile, and this is not helpful. But maybe for getting out of danger or something, like you are in a bad spot and everyone groups up on a puddle and just. Sure, I mean that works, right? So I think this is just more utility that this subclass is piling on. The Fiend patron is like the most classic Warlock patron. This has an extended spell list that includes a lot of fire. You got Burning Hands, you got Command, you got Scorching Ray, Blindness, Deafness, Fireball, Stinking Cloud, Fire Shield, Wall of Fire, Flame Strike, and Hallow. And then at first level, you're getting Dark One's Blessing. Starting at first level, when you reduce a hostile creature to 0, you gain temporary hit points equal to your Charisma modifier plus your Warlock level. I'm seeing a lot of temporary hit points as a part of this. I feel like that's very Warlocky. You make a deal for survival, and also your patron is probably like, I gotta keep this vassal alive so that they can keep doing my bidding. Kind of like that thematically for Warlocks. Regardless, this requires you to kill a hostile creature. So it's kind of like one of these things where you're like picking off the goons one at a time, just slaying them, grabbing their souls for whatever devil you made a pact with. Very, very fun. At 6th level, you're getting Dark One's Own Luck. Starting at 6th level, you can call on your patron to alter your fate. When you make an ability check or saving throw, you can use this feature to add a d10 to your roll. You do so after seeing the initial roll before seeing the result's effects. You can't use it again to finish a short rest. So once per short rest, you add a d10 to an ability check or saving throw. Probably going to keep this in the back pocket for the saving throws, most likely. D10 is good. D10 is great. Adding a 5, that's solid. It's with bounded accuracy, you can expect a D10 to make a difference on a D20 check, right? So solid. Once in a while, you get Dark One's luck, I guess. Where does this fall into everything else? Well, it's not really helping you be a beatdown. It's not really helping with utility because it's just for you, sorry, not really helping with support because it's just for you. Yeah, I suppose this helps with stealth or infiltration or investigation or negotiation, I suppose. And Warlocks already have that charisma base, so I guess that's decent. Fiendish Resilience. At 10th level, you can choose one damage type when you finish a short or long rest. You can resistance till you choose a different one. So, and this just lets you choose any damage type as far as I can tell, right? It's not a list. So you can choose force damage if you want to, which is amazing. You can choose fire damage in the fireplace or cold damage in the cold place. So this is a character that's actually very likely to survive getting temporary hit points every time you kill someone and resistance to a very common damage type, whatever you end up selecting. So that's pretty decent. Might even bump up the frontline capabilities to something, right? And then, of course, the signature ability of this class, Hurl Through Hell. You just take a person, no saving throw, and they just dump them in hell, right? They go through 10d10 of psychic damage. It's an incredibly powerful one target damaging effect. Can't use it again until you finish a long rest. Once per day, you throw someone into hell and you burn their mind with insanity. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I don't think it like sustainably increases your damage numbers, but it's good utility because it does say that they basically are gone for a turn or a round, essentially, right? From your turn to your turn again. So you do some crowd control, pretty good chance you're going to knock that creature down to a very low health. 10d10 obviously averages out to 55 damage, which is a big, hefty chunk, and is going to get you a head start on taking out that boss. So the Genie patron is a complicated one because it makes you make all these choices between the elements, right? So I'll just throw that the spell list is here. Some are better, some are worse, but they all have an interesting spell or two on the list. I think that this is one of the more exploitable Warlock subclasses. I think it's very common to see shenanigans with this because of the Genie's Vessel feature, which is all of this, which is wild. So you get a thing, a vessel, and you can do Bottled Respite. As an action, you can magically vanish and enter the vessel. You got a little place in there. All of these rules about mechanics and stuff like that. You can remain inside for a number of hours equal to twice your proficiency. Bonus action to leave. And then the other part of this feature, for some reason, is that the Genie's Wrath allows you to add damage dice to an attack. So it's extra damage to the target equal to your proficiency bonus. And then it's once on each of your turns. Every turn you're going to do a little bit more damage, and then it's equal to your Genie's type. So yeah, this is it's a weird feature. The Genie's Vessel is kind of designed to work around the Warlock's short rest dependency, so it kind of gives you this safe harbor whenever you want to take a short rest. You can see it's a number of hours equal to twice your proficiency bonus. So in the beginning, it's like 4 hours, and then it goes up to 6 hours, and like that's not enough for a long rest. And then you get to level 9, and like boom, that's 8 hours. You can take a long rest in there. So it is sort of like giving you this short rest option in a similar way to like a tiny hut or something like that. Elemental Gift at 6th level is going to give you a damage resistance. It says you have resistance to the damage type determined by your patron's kind. So this is again kind of a decision that you made earlier at 1st level when you chose which type of element to be associated with. And then as a bonus action, you can give yourself a flying speed that lasts 10 minutes. during which you can hover. So it's only a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest, but flying for 10 minutes too is pretty good. Like, that's some solid utility for sure. So this is definitely a powerful ability. If you'll recall, a lot of our like sorcerers were getting flying at I think a little later than this, or like around this level. So it's definitely this like powerful utility ability that people want at this level. So that's good. Your extra damage is pretty minimal, but there are ways to shenanigan with it. And then your kind of safe short resting is going to increase the frequency of your spell casting, which is good for all sorts of things, right? So it's kind of a general boost. The Sanctuary's Vessel is, of course, a critical ability for the class. At 10th level, you can now choose a number of killing creatures, up to 5, within 30 feet of you, and then draw them into the vessel with you. And then, in addition to that, anyone who remains in the vessel for 10 minutes or more gets a short rest. And they add proficiency bonus to the number of hit points they regain if they spend any hit dice as part of it. So this is like a super short rest vessel. And again, this is 10th level now, so you can keep everyone in there with you for a long rests period, right? 4 times 2 is 8 hours. So you can long rest in this Genie's Vessel if you feel confident that it won't be destroyed or something, or stolen by a bad guy. It's a useful, consistent rest mechanic, and that 10 minutes is really nice as well. 14th level, Limited Wish is an incredible utility ability. Allows you to make a wish that essentially recreates the effect of another spell from any class spell list. So this lets you kind of reach around and grab whatever you need from other classes at the right moment. This really favors the player who has a very good understanding of like all the spells in the game, kind of like has that encyclopedic memory of those spells. This is going to let you line up like a specific utility cast of exactly the spell that you need. Pact of the Great Old One. I always feel like this pact should be better. It is cool. It's just like I feel like Great Old Ones are such like an amazing concept, and then to have like these like middling powers is kind of funny. The other thing I like is the idea that the Great Old One is not aware of you. You've sort of tapped into it subconsciously, or it has like just so powerful that you're kind of catching like a very peripheral amount of that energy. But your spell list is going to include things like Dissonant Whispers, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Detect Thoughts, Phantasmal Force, Clairvoyance, Sending, Dominate Beast, Aver's Black Tentacles, Dominate Person, and Telekinesis. So a lot of mind, mental stuff. Your Awakened Mind at first level is going to give you the ability to establish a telepathic connection. You can just basically have free-range telepathy, right, to anyone within 30 feet of you. So you don't need to share a language with the creature, so you can just boop, 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 communicate with whoever who needs to hear it. Very, very useful. I find that the ability to speak telepathically to people is kind of just one of those taxes that you like have to pay. Like someone in the party has to have this ability so that you can coordinate amongst everybody. It's just one of those things where it's very helpful to be able to communicate with your party members without NPCs listening. If you have that kind of DM, or in different environments, or like underwater or whatever, just being able to have that is a very useful feature. So I'm actually going to chalk up some points to support just for having Awakened Mind. I think you just sort of need it sometimes. And if you play this class, your party will have it. At 6th level, you get Entropic Ward. You essentially, when you're attacked, you can use a reaction to impose disadvantage on the roll. And then if it misses you, your next attack roll against that creature has advantage. And you make it before the end of your next turn. You get hit less often. You can hit them. This didn't ever strike me as like a very like weapons-focused Warlock, but I think this still works for like spell attacks or melee spell attacks and that kind of thing. So if you've got those, that's probably what you're using this for. My favorite ability for the class actually is Thought Shield. I just really like it. I think it's fun. I think, well, let me read it to you. So starting at 10th level, your mind can't be read by telepathy or any other means unless you allow it. You've got resistance to psychic damage, and whatever creature deals psychic damage to you, they take the same amount that you do. So you like split the psychic damage with them, which is so fun. It's such a fun, it's just a neat little, I love it. I love the mind being unreadable. I think to make this class good, the Awakened Mind, like I said, is like a very nifty utility feature. Your spell list is okay. I think Thought Shield kind of needs to be at level 1. Like, I think as soon as you've touched the Great Old One and they're influencing you, your mind becomes very alien, and you've got this affinity for psychic damage. You go ahead and tack on the ability to speak telepathically, and then put a real feature here at 10th level. I think now you're cooking. I think now people are like, ooh, I want to be a Great Old One patron. I think as it is, it's a little not great. But I just love Thought Shield. I think it's fun. I think it's a neat idea, right? Your mind is so messed up that when people try and mess with it, they get whacked. And then Create Thrall. Wow, what an ability. I love this one. So you touch an incapacitated creature. And remember, incapacitated doesn't have to be like reduced to 0 hit points, but it can be. But you touch an incapacitated creature and then you charm them. And this is like considered a curse. It lasts until a remove curse spell is cast on it. So it could conceivably be doing this forever. If you use this feature again, it will remove that. But you can have one thrall all the time. You can communicate telepathically with that creature, so long as two of you are on the same plane of existence. So that's like as much credit as you're going to get for stuff like this. You'll always be able to communicate with your thrall. And of course, it is charmed by you. So your persuasion checks have advantage on it, and intimidation checks and all that kind of stuff. So you can kind of boss this guy around. Love the feature. Super, super fun. Lends itself to incredibly thematic moments. Absolutely love it. So let's take stock after this many subclasses. Boosts to damage for Warlocks have been pretty far between. Lots of them get survivability tools, but again, to be a good frontliner, you're kind of looking at also increases to AC, and you're also looking for ways to make the enemy want to hit you specifically. And that's tough to come by, even for a Warlock. So you're kind of not doing those skills very well. Very, very few of these abilities have been oriented at ability checks. Warlocks are not necessarily great at these skills like investigation and perception and stealth and persuasion. They can get some Eldritch Invocations for that, right? But that's all in the base class. That's all baseline. Again, and for other roles, right, that familiar can be useful for those, but that's also baseline. When you look at like what roles is the Warlock subclasses oriented at, it is almost all utility. Now, we've seen some support, we've seen some real frontline potential, but yeah, it's a utility bunch of subclasses. This next subclass is not that. The Hexblade subclass is kind of widely known in the D&D community, of course, for being a bit of a powerhouse when it comes to damage. So let's go through it. So first we'll start with the spell list. It's going to include Shield, Wrathful Smite, Blur, Branding Smite, Blink, Elemental Weapon, Phantasmal Killer, Staggering Smite, Banishing Smite, and Cone of Cold. So you're getting all your smite stuff as a Warlock. Then you're getting Hexblade's Curse. You're getting the ability to place a curse as a bonus action on a creature you can see. It's got all this stuff. So you get a bonus to damage rolls against the cursed target equal to proficiency bonus. Don't forget that the Genie Warlock added that proficiency bonus to one damage roll per turn. This is all damage rolls against the cursed target. So if you pick one person and stick with it, that is significantly better than the Genie damage boost, right? You look at the Celestial Pact, and what do you get? You get to one roll of fire or radiant damage, right? Again, this is significantly better. So we are one bullet point into one feature on the subclass, and as far as damage is concerned, it's eclipsed any other Warlock subclass. So just let that process for a second. Any attack roll you make against the cursed target is a critical hit on a 19 or 20, so that's doubling your crit chance against this target. If a cursed target dies, you regain hit points equal to your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. These are not temporary hit points, so you have to have taken damage, but that is equal to some of the subclasses, the subclass features that we've seen, right? Dark One's Blessing, there are others, right? You've seen this formula before. These are 3 bullet points of one feature. Eclipses the damage, meets the same regenerative capacity as those other classes. So you perhaps see why this is, and this is the weaker of the 2 first level abilities. Hex Warrior, you gain the necessary training to be effective in combat. You gain proficiency with medium armor, shields, martial weapons. Your AC just boom, boosted. Frontline capacity, boom, boosted. Influence replacement allows you to magically channel your will through a particular weapon. Finish a long rest, you touch a weapon, turns into like your weapon. When you attack with it, you can use your charisma modifier instead of strength or dexterity for the attack and damage rolls. So this is now going to allow you to focus on your charisma, which increases your spell casting, your spell save DC, all of that good stuff, and be just as effective in combat. You are single ability score dependent and dealing a ton of damage in all of those different ways. So huge, 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 huge. A lot of people pair this with Paladin, with Sorcerer, with anything else to essentially be super effective charisma battle person. But I think just straight vanilla on its own, the Hexblade Warlock is substantially better frontline, substantially better beatdown than other classes. At 6th level, you get the feature that nobody's ever talked about, which is a Cursed Spectre. So when you slay a humanoid, you can cause its spirit to rise from the corpse as a spectre, statistics of which are in the monster manual. So at level 6, summoning a challenge rating 1 monster. It obeys your every command. When it appears, it gains temporary hit points equal to half your Warlock level. So a couple hit points for now, but we'll get to more. Roll initiative for it. Gains a special bonus to its attack rolls equal to your charisma modifier, which again, you are maximizing. Spectre remains in your service until the end of the next long rest, which is so long. So why would you want a Spectre bound to you? Well, first of all, it can move through objects. So it is moving through walls, moving through floors, moving through mountainsides. I don't think you can like see through its senses or anything. It's got resistance to a ton of damage types. Acid, lightning, thunder, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. Immune to necrotic and poison. It's immune to all of these conditions. So many conditions. Dark vision out to 60 feet. It's moving through walls and stuff. And then its hit points, 22 plus half your Warlock level. Its bonus to hit with life drain is 4 plus your charisma modifier. So probably like 8 plus 8 to hit. It's going to deal 3d6 necrotic damage. Reduce that maximum hit points if they fail their save. And it's got this brutal effect of killing them if they're reduced to 0. So that I don't know why you would be using this on a player character, but a player character would, of course, be killed. So it's a very effective kind of assassin stat block, right? It's moving through walls. It's got this great bonus to hit. This is a scary creature, and you get it until a long rest, which is incredible. Then you're going to get Armor of Hexes at 10th level, which says, the curse targeted by your Hexblade's curse, if the target of your Hexblade's curse hits you with an attack roll, you can use a reaction to roll a d6. On a 4 or higher, the attack instead misses you, regardless of the roll. So 50% chance to not hit you, regardless of their attack roll. That's really, really good. This is only kept by your reaction, so you can just keep using this turn after turn to negate their attacks, while yours are very, very likely to hit and crit even. And then at 14th level, you're going to get Master of Hexes. Starting at 14th level, you can spread your Hexblade's curse from a slain creature to another creature. So when the creature cursed by your Hexblade's curse dies, you can apply the curse to a different creature you can see within 30 feet of you. This will cost you the hit points that you were going to regenerate, which is pretty significant at this level, right? That is probably going to be like 19 hit points you're foregoing to be able to reapply this, but it means that you don't have to keep recasting Hexblade's curse and can plow your way through enemies one at a time. So a weak 14th level feature, but if you're going to have a 14th level, or if you're going to have a weak feature, if you're going to have a weak feature, you kind of want it at 14th level. You can push that stuff all the way down the line, and everyone multi-classes with this, because nobody really likes Armor of Hexes or a Cursed Spectre. Everyone grabs that first couple of levels and then moseys on out of Warlock. So what a subclass. I don't know why they printed it like this, but very good in a lot of roles. Undead Pact. So the Undead Pact was kind of a response to the Undying Pact, which we'll talk about last. Undead Pact is going to be centered around your Form of Dread ability. Form of Dread says you manifest an aspect of your patron's dreadful power. As a bonus action, you transform for 1 minute. You gain the following benefits while transformed. You get temporary hit points equal to 1d10 plus your Warlock level. That's nice. Once during each of your turns, when you hit a creature with an attack roll, you force it to make a Wisdom saving throw, and if they fail, they are frightened until the end of your next turn. And then you yourself are immune to the frightened condition. So, what's going on here is you are steadily crowd controlling people with your attacks. You've got this little temporary hit points, and this is kind of your rage, your kind of like combat mode mechanic. It says you can transform a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and then regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So, more or less you're counting on one Form of Dread per combat. Now, how effective is the frightened condition? Well, it's good. It is effective crowd control. The fact that you're doing it on top of your attacks is nice. You're not sacrificing anything to do these fear effects. And they can be relatively crippling if you are remaining within line of sight of all those enemies, because it says you've got disadvantage on attack rolls if you're within sight of the target of your fear, which is, of course, you. So if you're staying kind of like within sight of all these folks, then they are much less effective in combat if they're afraid. At 6th level, you're going to get Grave Touched, which says your patron's powers have a profound effect on your body and magic. You don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. And in addition, once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with an attack roll, you can replace the damage type with necrotic damage. While you're in your Form of Dread, you roll an additional damage die when determining the necrotic damage. And again, this is once per turn. Remember that the bonus effect of a critical hit is often just one more weapon damage die. So this is that per turn necrotic damage, which is not often resisted or immune unless you're up against like Undead or something like that, in which case that's pretty tough. But that's a pretty big damage boost, right? Every turn getting an extra damage dice, making it necrotic. It's pretty good. And then Necrotic Husk at 10th level. Necrotic Husk says, your connection to undeath and necrotic energy saturates your body. You've got resistance to necrotic damage. If you are transformed using your Form of Dread, you become immune to necrotic damage. Super, super cool. And in certain combats, absolutely critical. So whatever you were losing in terms of fighting undead with that Grave Touched, you are gaining now in survivability as a Necrotic Husk. Whenever you would be reduced to 0 hit points, you can use your reaction to drop to 1 hit point instead. Cause your body to erupt with deathly energy. We have seen this, of course, with that Celestial Pact Warlock. So this is kind of the inverse, because you're going to deal damage to everyone within 30 feet of you equal to 2d10 plus your Warlock level. So that's way higher of damage. But then you gain 1 level of exhaustion. And then you do have to wait 1d4 long rests to do this again. So compare and contrast that to the Celestial, where when you were knocked down, you got half your hit points back, blinded everyone, and then did 2d8 plus, I think, charisma or proficiency bonus, some lesser amount of damage, right? In this case, 10th level plus 2d10, that's like 21 necrotic damage. That's a much bigger boom chunk of explosion, but then no status effect, so no blinded condition. You're out of that game for several long rests, and you get exhaustion. So I kind of think I would take the Celestial one over the Necrotic Husk here, but it's super cool. Lastly, at 14th level, you're getting Spirit Protection. Your spirit becomes untethered from your physical form. As an action, you can project your spirit from your body. Your spirit resembles your mortal form in every way. Damage or other effects that apply to your spirit or physical party affect the other. So you're not immune to anything. You can remain outside your body for 1 hour or until your concentration is broken. When projecting your spirit, you are resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. When you cast a spell of the Conjuration or Necromancy school, it doesn't require verbal or somatic components or a material component that lacks gold cost. You have a flying speed equal to your walking speed and can hover. And then when you're using your form of dread, once during each of your turns when you deal necrotic damage to a creature, you regain hit points equal to half the amount of necrotic damage that was dealt. So, what this is essentially saying is, you are queuing up for a fight. You go, sorry guys, 1 minute, let me walk behind this tree here. You sit down behind the tree, and your spiritual form comes out, and you go, great, I'm ready for combat. And you go fight as a ghost. You reduce the stuff for necromancy and conjuration school spells. You are regenerating health each turn when you deal that necrotic damage that you're dealing, and you've got resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. So you've got some of the best of being a barbarian, more or less. So this is crazy. This is actually like really good frontline stuff. It is really interesting damage bonuses, right? You've got the utility of a fly speed as well, which is incredible. I really, really love this. Now, you can't do so until you finish a long rest, and you're probably doing multiple battles per long rest. So this is not something you get to do all in every battle, but for certain key battles, it's an extreme boost of power for your Warlock. Alright, so last one, the Undying Pact. Womp womp. Not the greatest. So for your spell list, you're going to get False Life, Ray of Sickness, Blindness, Deafness, Silence, Feign Death, Speak with Dead, Aura of Life, Death Ward, Contagion, and Legend Lore. Some of these are good, but most are stinkers. Like, it's not a great spell list. And then you get Among the Dead. So at first level, you learn the Spare the Dying cantrip. Not the best cantrip. And then you have advantage on saving throws against any disease. Undead have difficulty harming you. They have to make a Wisdom saving throw. And on a failed save, they must choose a new target. But they still get to attack. So it's not, like, even in an undead fight, it's not necessarily like, it's just making sure you don't die. And then that's only when you're fighting undead, which is pretty lame. And if they successfully save, they're immune to the effect for 24 hours. So I literally think you just scratch this feature. Like, it's nothing. It's zero. I don't think this is a worthwhile feature to a class at all. But if you make it all the way to 6th level, you get a pretty cool ability. Defy Death. Starting at 6th level, you give yourself Vitality when you cheat death, or when you help someone else cheat it. You regain hit points equal to 1d8 plus your Constitution modifier when you succeed on a death saving throw, or when you stabilize a creature with Spare the Dying. So, and again, it is you who regain the hit points. So Spare the Dying now heals you for a d8 plus your con modifier. So like a Cure Wounds, basically, more or less. So you like Cure Wounds yourself when you Spare the Dying. And then also when you succeed on a death saving throw. Now, if you regain hit points while dying, you are no longer dying. So this means if you get even a single success on your death saving throw, boom, d8 plus con modifier, you are standing back up again, right? And at 6th level is a pretty low level. Like, that is a nice place to have that feature. The only issue is you can only do this once per long rest. So it's nice. You have a significantly reduced chance of dying, I think, because even if you go down, which is hard to do, then your first death saving throw, you're boom, back up. And people don't need to worry about you, which is good. Once per long rest? I kind of feel like it should be, like, really hard to keep this character down, but I guess that's fine. 10th level, Undying Nature. It's all flavor stuff. You don't need to eat. You don't need to sleep. You don't need water. You require rest to reduce exhaustion, though, so you still have to, like, do short and long rests. And then you age at a slower rate. This is fine, but just put another feature in at 10th level. 10th level, it's like Undying Nature, and it's also like Form of Undeath. Whenever you deal necrotic damage, or blow up any creatures around. Whatever, it doesn't matter, right? But there should be another feature at 10th level. It's pretty lame. And then, you know, you get to 14th level in this subclass. It's a miracle. Indestructible life. On your turn, you can use a bonus action to regain hit points equal to 1d8 plus your Warlock level. And you can reattach body parts. Hooray! Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. I'm not kidding when I say this should just be continuous. Like, you should literally just every bonus action be able to restore some hit points. Like, see your enemy kill you then. Unbelievable. Anyway, so that's the Undead pack. That's all of the packs of the Warlock. Let me sum up really quick. Warlock subclasses are actually not as strong as I thought. Looking through all of them, you get some utility on a lot of these. Some of them have some damage. Some of them have some support. But so many of the roles of the party are related to skills and related to ability checks. Negotiation, investigation, you know, infiltration, all this kind of stuff. And Warlocks are not actually that... they're naturally good at it. Their base class features are good at it. Their subclasses tend not to lean into that. So that's kind of interesting. Anyway, I will see you guys next week with another video, and we are almost done with the series. Wizard is next, and then we will be doing recap stuff, the analysis of all the subclasses and how they work. I'll have spreadsheets. It'll be a grand old time. Take care.